me today to talk about surge protection for managers and talk about how we can manage all of the stress, all of the emotions we've been feeling in our work and in our lives in general. My name is Jamie Peterson, and I will be your host for this session. As we're getting started here, I'll do a couple logistical items. I'll introduce myself, and then from there we'll get started. I first wanted to let you know that I'm having a little bit of trouble with Ring Central, and it might boot me out. It takes me only about 5 seconds, knock on wood, to get back in. So if you lose me, hang in there and I'll come right back. I also want to let you know that the session today is being recorded, so you can pick this up again at another time if for some reason you have any technical issues or need to leave for any reason. Also, I have my chat open. During the session today, I will be asking you questions. Please feel free to interact with me throughout the session. By posting your questions in the chat, I will try to catch those and answer them as we go through the session, and answer my questions in the chat as well. Anything I see in the chat, I will share without using any names. So you can send your chat directly to me, and I won't necessarily say so-and-so asked this question. I will share your question confidentially with others. Okay, so those are logistics. As I said, my name is Jamie Peterson. I'm happy to be with all of you today. I'm coming to you from just outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I have a master's degree in counseling and a PhD in educational psychology. I'm focused on helping people build and learn and practice the skills that we all need to be successful in the workplace as well as in our personal lives. And for the last year and a half, we have really been incredibly challenged in our work and in our personal lives as well. And it has called upon us to really dig deep and to learn new skills to really take care of ourselves and find ways for us to show up in the workplace and be positive and productive. And as managers, it has really called on you to dig even deeper to be a positive and productive leader for others who may be experiencing all kinds of stress and distress in their work and private lives as well. So in this session today, I hope to share with you quite a few research-backed strategies to help you cope and help support you as you continue to move forward. All right, as I said, I'm having some technical difficulties. I apologize, but I am back. I'm hoping that this doesn't continue and that we're able to keep this session going. I apologize for that. All right, so let's dive in here now and get started. Okay, first, a thank you or on behalf of Southern New Hampshire University. A thank you for your focus and commitment to students and employees during one of the most challenging times of your career and likely their educational careers as well as their professional careers as well. The work that you're doing on a daily basis, how you are showing up at work and contributing to others positively really is a testament to your professionalism. So a thank you there on behalf of SNHU. Now I wanted to check in and just find out from you, how are you doing? If you can share with me in the chat, how are you doing? And how are you feeling, really? I'm coming at you from a psychological perspective here. I mentioned I have a master's degree in counseling. I'm always interested in how people are feeling, right? So share with me a feeling word. How are you feeling today? Happy, sad? Are you feeling tired? Are you feeling overwhelmed or anxious? How are you feeling today? Now, on the slide, I have the Delta variant. Over the weekend, right, we had news of this Omicron variant, which has stirred up all kinds of more anxiety. Just when we thought we were nearing the end of this COVID tunnel, we've got more that's stirring things up, right? So how are you feeling today with everything that's been going on? Some of you might even be feeling thankful, right? We just came off of a weekend where many of might be celebrating Thanksgiving, and so you may be still having some of those thankful feelings floating around. I see annoyed, yes, annoyed with that new variant. I see quite a few tired, happy, exhausted, over it. Yes, I hear you. I feel that too some days. Stressed. And another person shared, always trying to feel fortunate. Yes. Yes, I hear you. There's a lot in the chat that just makes us feel a little bit heavy, right? And at the same time, I want to acknowledge in the chat, I'm also seeing happiness, hopefulness, and gratitude. There's a range, and we might be feeling that range at the same time. And so it's important to acknowledge that we're all feeling a lot of feelings. Those feelings might change by the minute, and they might feel contradictory. It has often felt like we're on a roller coaster during COVID. And sometimes it's steep inclines and steep declines, and other days it feels like we're plateauing, right? It's really been a lot of different feelings, and it's really important to acknowledge that we're having all these different feelings, we're having all of these reactions, and really to own your own feelings and your own reactions. Great, thanks for sharing all of that. And now I'm curious to hear from you. What have been your biggest challenges during this time? What have been your biggest challenges over the last year and a half as we continue to show tremendous flexibility? What have been your biggest challenges? Staying active, I see. Yes, right? Especially if you're working at home. I know the majority of you are working at home. It can be a real challenge when you're in your house all the time, right? We're hitting on winter for many of us. That can make it more difficult to get outside as well. I see time management, being focused, keeping solid connections with coworkers and others. That is a significant challenge. Decision fatigue, family safety, loss, right? Loss, that grief that we're feeling. And not just grief for people. We tend to think of grief as a loss of people, right? But we've also lost our sense of what's normal, our sense of safety, our sense of being able to go out in the world and just go out to the grocery store without thinking twice, right? Popping in at a friend's house without thinking twice. We're grieving for this loss of what felt so normal for so many of us. I see other challenges, work-life balance, building a culture online, sleeping, yes, balancing work, life, parenting, healthy social life, and sleep. And I see more decision fatigue, absolutely. So if we look at the impact of COVID-19 on managers, this is a lot of what you all have been dealing with. Being able to pivot under pressure, that flexibility I mentioned, being able to adapt no matter what is coming at you and to continue to adapt. We can be flexible, adaptable people. COVID has really stretched our flexibility, right? Because we feel like it's constant and we're tired of that. We're reaching a point where this Omicron variant feels like, oh, here we go again, right? How much flexibility am I going to have? How much longer am I going to have to continue to pivot and continue to change and adapt? It can be mentally exhausting. When COVID hit, we had one of the quickest and largest workplace transformations. There was a lot of disruption there as we set up to work remotely and then also manage your employees remotely. So you couldn't just look over and see how they were doing. You couldn't stop by. You couldn't have those conversations where you could really look them in the eye and see how they're doing, where you could pat them on the shoulder if they were having a hard day, where you could bring them a cup of coffee or go for a walk. It's really changed our relationships with one another. That should say vast changes in the use of technology as well, really gearing ourselves up, having all of these new tools and being able to use them effectively. And then as I'm having technical difficulties here today, right, relying on the internet, relying on the resources we have in our homes to do our work that we didn't have to do previously. Also a heightened awareness of employee well-being. Everyone has been struggling at different times during the last year and a half. And just this sense of awareness that someone might be struggling and you might not know that they are struggling as a manager, that can be difficult to cope with. Also knowing that an employee isn't doing well and is struggling, and also feeling a bit at a loss for how do I help them and how do we navigate this. And then also feelings of isolation, anxiety, stress, and burnout, both your own as well as those feelings in your teams. And for many of us who are working at home, we might have family, friends, roommates who are also working at home with us. And these feelings can swirl around. And so even if you're working at different organizations, these feelings of anxiety, stress, and burnout may influence you and them, even though we're working completely different jobs, right? No person is an island, but we are on different islands, which can be a little difficult. You also have been hearing from employees about a range of issues, a range of things that they are struggling with, things that are sad, like death of a loved one, poor health, serious illness. Those serious and chronic illnesses have not gone away simply because there's COVID. And in fact, it has made these serious and chronic illnesses a little more difficult because we don't always know what the care is going to look like, how accessible it's going to be, and how we're going to be able to manage it in a COVID world. So it's added some additional layers of complexity onto what normally is a difficult and stressful time. Also, personal struggles, relationship struggles in our personal lives. Mental health issues that were already there have maybe been exacerbated by COVID, or maybe have appeared because of some of the impacts of COVID. Also, conflict within the workplace can be more difficult to really work through when we're working remotely. So the reality here, you may want to do more for the employee, right? You may want to reach out to them more, offer them more flexibility, more latitude, lower some standards, right? These are things that you may be wanting to do. At the same time, as their manager, you are also responsible for ensuring that your team is meeting goals and outcomes, right? There are still deadlines that have to be met. When it comes to the academic realm, there are constant deadlines that need to be met, right? And we can't continuously shift and flex on those deadlines because someone is having a difficult week. So it's really difficult to manage this as a manager. How do you show compassion to your employees while you're also doing your job, leading your team, and really helping the organization to meet and achieve its goals? Interactions you have may stir emotions from your own current or past experiences as well, because just because you're a manager doesn't mean that you're flying through things really easily either, right? So you're having your own experiences. You're probably feeling a lot of empathy. We'll talk about that in a bit here. You're probably feeling a lot of compassion, the sense that you want to care for and help others out. And there might be other things that you're feeling. Any thoughts on what you're hearing from employees and the reality you're experiencing that I haven't covered yet? Feel free to put those in the chat. Any other things you're hearing about, or any challenges you're experiencing that I haven't mentioned? Empathy fatigue, absolutely, yes, yes. We have a term that has been widely studied in psychology in the last 3-ish decades or so called compassion fatigue. So I'll talk about that here in a minute. Okay, so let's transition into this. So when we're experiencing stress for prolonged periods of time, it can lead to burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondary trauma. Oh, and I see in the chat, someone mentioned political variance, damaging family relationships in a time when they are important. Yes, right? The politics issue. I can't believe I forgot to mention that one. There's been a lot of up and down in politics, right? Another issue I forgot to mention too, environmental kind of climate issues, right? Depending on where you live, you might be experiencing a drought or Wildfires are less prominent right now, but also flooding, hurricanes, right? There's all kinds of environmental stressors that we still experience during this time of COVID. So there's a lot there. So let's shift now into burnout and thinking a little bit about what burnout is. So burnout occurs when we are under chronic stress or extreme levels of stress that don't necessarily happen for long periods of time, but happen in these kind of significant bursts, right? And at the same time, we have these excessive demands on our time, our energy, and our resources. And with burnout, we start to feel like we're losing energy, that we're losing our strength, and that we're losing our sense of really, I think of it as our get up and go, right? That sense of, yes, I want to be at my job, I want to do great work, and I'm really excited about it. Or maybe not excited, but you're there, you're present, and you're committed to doing good work, right? Burnout happens and those feelings all dissipate. And they're replaced with feelings like irritability, anger, fatigue, a sense of tiredness, difficulty logging into work, difficulty being productive and getting work done, difficulty really caring. So we see apathy with burnout where people just kind of disengage. They're going through the motions. They're not really putting in a solid effort because they've kind of lost their spark. They're no longer caring like they used to. So that's what we see with burnout. We can contrast burnout with compassion fatigue here. Compassion fatigue is when you feel like you can't care about others anymore. And this is something that managers might experience, people in human resources, or any kind of helping profession might experience. I would say here teachers would experience compassion fatigue as well. When you hear about the sad circumstances that students or your employees are going through, and you continue to hear about these stressful situations, all of these reasons for sadness and despair, after a while you can feel a little bit like you're tapped out and you can't feel anymore because you become so overwhelmed with care and concern for others that gets replaced with kind of an emptiness where you start to feel real apathy. So you still might care about doing your work and doing your job, but you just care for others less when you have that compassion fatigue. So a little contrast there. Secondary trauma can also occur. Secondary trauma is when someone who has been through something traumatic shares that experience with you. They talk you through it. They talk about what they experienced, how they felt, and how they're continuing to deal with the effects of that trauma. You can also become traumatized by hearing about their story and hearing about the impact that it's had on them. And so then with secondary trauma, you will start to feel traumatized yourself. So you may start to experience some of those same feelings where perhaps you are kind of feeling there might be some apathy there, right? Where you stop caring quite so much because you're kind of spent. You might be feeling a bit of withdrawal, right? Like you're withdrawing from a situation to protect yourself. You may also feel quite a bit of sadness, and that may be kind of moving into depression a bit as well. So prolonged periods of stress can lead to all three of these things. The question is, are you at risk? So I'm going to ask you just a couple questions here just to help you think about how you're doing. So I want you to consider how often during the day are you taking at least a 15-minute break? Okay, or maybe let me rephrase that question. How many days a week are you taking at least one 15-minute break? You can share it in the chat with me if you want, or you can just reflect on your own. How many days a week are you taking at least one 15-minute break during your working day? Okay. I want you to think about the last time that you had a real social connection with a coworker. When is the last time that you had a real conversation with a coworker? One where you felt seen and heard and valued, and you were fully present in that conversation where you really saw and heard and valued that coworker, where it was a real reciprocal conversation, a real social connection and exchange happened. When is the last time you've done something like that at work, where you've had a real social connection? Okay. Oh, good. I'm seeing here people are not taking very many breaks. Yeah, not many breaks. But I do see here in the chat that some people are doing better with the social conversations than they are with breaks. So that's okay, right? That's good. That can be a good thing. Yes, as a manager, there's extra pressure there to create those moments for your team, right? So it's good that you're creating those moments. It's good that you're having those moments. I'm going to go back to that break thing though, too, right? And now I want you to think about, when is the last time that you really did something for yourself? After hours, right? When work was done, when is the last time you really did something for yourself? Now, I suppose we're coming off of a longer weekend, so you may have had some time to do that. But thinking about, when is the last time you did something that was really for you, where you really took some time to invest in you? Alone. You mean alone? Yes, it could be alone, or it could be with friends, right? It could be with loved ones. So doing something for you, I consider, for me, one of my favorite things when I do something for me is to meet a friend for a walk. That's something I do for myself. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you're thinking about this. These are questions we can ask ourselves. The last question I'm going to ask you is, think about your energy on a scale from 1 to 10. 10 is high energy. 1 is you're a slug and you want to crawl into bed, right? So think about your energy on this 1 to 10 scale, and how energetic are you feeling during a typical workday? 1 to 10. 1 to 10, how energetic are you feeling on a typical workday? Okay. Oh no, -5. Okay. A 4 to 5. I'm seeing some 3, a 6, an 8. You might bounce around too, right? You might be feeling like, well, on these days I'm more of a 5, but on other days I'm more of a 7 or an 8. So you might bounce around. I'm seeing quite a few 7s, quite a few 8s, so that's good. Also quite a few in the middle. Okay, good. So these are some questions for you to reflect on and think about, how am I really doing? What we tend to see is that people, when we stop taking breaks, right? When people stop taking breaks, that puts you at risk for burnout. It puts you at risk for compassion fatigue. If you're going from meeting to meeting to meeting, meeting with your team, trying to have those real social connections where you're hearing them, seeing them, valuing them, and helping them problem solve, if you're not taking a moment, doesn't even always have to be 15 minutes. I know I said 15, even just 5 minutes. If we're not taking those moments in between, it compounds those feelings, the stress, the sense of urgency, the desire to help others, to relieve their suffering. It gets compounded from one meeting to another, and we get to the end of the day and we're fatigued, right? So taking breaks or refusing to take breaks, forgetting to take breaks, can put us at risk. Also, when we're not having those meaningful social connections, that can put us at risk, because that means we're starting to withdraw, right? We're not really engaging in those relationships, and that can be a risk for burnout and compassion fatigue. When you're not taking time for yourself, doing something for you to feed your soul, to feed who you are, your spirit, that can put you at risk for burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondary trauma. And then just looking at your energy levels. If we're not paying attention to how we feel and just plowing through day after day, that can also feed into burnout and compassion fatigue, because we're not stopping to think about, why am I feeling low today? And what can I do to help myself feel a little bit better? So we need to make sure that we're really checking in with ourselves, paying attention to our energy, how we're pacing ourselves throughout the day, allowing ourselves moments to just be and think about how we're doing and be mindful, and then really invest in ourselves on a daily basis. Okay, so as we continue to move forward, a couple things here are important for us to keep in mind. We need to know our signs and symptoms. We need to know when we're starting to feel frustrated more easily, when we're starting to feel irritable, when apathy is creeping in, when we're starting to feel a sense of sadness, when we're withdrawing. We need to be aware of these things, and that little light bulb needs to go on inside of our heads to say, something isn't right with me today. This is starting to get to me. This is starting to drag me down. And then we need to take action and engage in healthy coping strategies so that we can support ourselves, so that we can show up at work and support others. That's a key part of engaging in healthy coping strategies. Taking care of yourself, investing in yourself so that you can take care of others. We need to make sure that we are leveraging support and resources. That's where some of those social connections can come into play. We're talking with your peers, talking with your leaders. You can leverage their support, perhaps get access to resources in that way. Also, those social connections outside of work, sharing with others how you're feeling, what's challenging for you, and what you're doing to, again, leverage those social support resources. Even if it's just a nice warm hug from someone, or a sense that someone is really out there who values you and is listening to you, that support can really be meaningful, and can really help us keep going. And then also, friends, family outside of work can help us with resources. Sometimes they can provide us with time. They can help us out. And they may also know of other resources in our communities that can help and support us as well. And then another important piece is to keep in mind that professional help is available. This is something that you should freely seek out and use, and also refer employees to use as well. So your Anthem Employee Assistance Program, I'll share a little more information on that at the end of the session today, but they do have counselors who are available to help you. They have financial advisors. You can do legal consultations. They have all kinds of resources available to help you out. Okay, so now the question here that I want to ask you, I talked about those healthy coping strategies, and I shared one coping strategy I use to meet a friend for a good walk. So I'd like to hear from you. What are some things you do for healthy coping and self-care? These might be things you do on occasion, or these might be things you do on a daily basis or a weekly, or maybe even a weekly basis. So if you can, share with me in the chat, what are some things you do for healthy coping and self-care? And in sharing what you're doing for healthy coping and self-care, this is also essentially a brainstorming session where your peers may see, oh, that's a good idea. I should try doing that as well. So share what you're doing, as it may help others as well. You see, meditating. Yes, meditating can be incredibly helpful. Exercising 4 times a week, doing yoga, soaking in an outdoor hot tub sounds amazing. That's great. Daily walks, kickboxing, journaling, home projects, crafting, exercising every day, trying to learn new skills. Fantastic. So you're engaging in quite a few of these self-care strategies that we know can be helpful. From the research, what we know in terms of self-care is there are 4 primary things you can do. Exercising, as many of you have mentioned, when we're moving our bodies for about 30 minutes a day, getting our heart rates up, it helps us to handle those stress hormones that we're releasing on a regular basis as we experience stress during the day. Exercise, I think of it, I'm from Minnesota, as I mentioned, I think of it like a Zamboni. It clears out the ice, right? It clears out some of those stress hormones so that we can feel better and more peaceful. When we exercise, we sleep better. That's the second strategy, is sleeping. Making sleep one of the most important appointments you have every day is really important. So 7 to 9 hours is the goal, and practicing good sleep hygiene. If you need some pointers on sleep hygiene, go online and search for sleep hygiene recommendations. You'll find quite a few that can help you get more sleep. Sleep helps clear out your brain. It's that Zamboni for your brain, so that the next day you'll be able to concentrate, you can focus, you can think more critically and creatively when you have gotten enough sleep. So sleep is really important to our mental and really emotional well-being as well. And then the third piece there is eating, being mindful of what we're eating, especially in this holiday season when we are celebrating with friends and family, and there are many foods around that we don't typically eat. We have to keep in mind that food is fuel. So sugar, caffeine, alcohol, those things that help us feel good in the moment don't help us feel good in the long run. So being mindful of what we're eating is important. And what we eat, especially at night, impacts how we sleep. So there's that connection there. The fourth thing that I mentioned, the fourth research-backed strategy that can help us really cope effectively is social support. I'm hitting on that one again. It's incredibly important and helpful to have social connections. It's a great way that we can support others and get support ourselves. So making sure that you've got some strong social connections is another great and effective coping strategy. Okay. So I've talked about those four main strategies now. Those strategies help us to become more resilient. So when you think about resilience, I'm curious to hear from all of you, what does resilience mean to you? What is resilience? It could be an image you think of or a couple words. What do you think of when I say resilience? Consistency. I like that. Yes. Consistency. Strong. Good. Other thoughts? What is resiliency? Bouncing back. Yes, absolutely. When pushed, you engage. Yes, good. The ability to get back up. I love it. Yes, you've got it. So resiliency, I think of it as a bouncy ball. No matter how hard you throw that bouncy ball, it's going to bounce back up. So resilience is essentially keeping going, overcoming adversity and overcoming challenges. So when you get pushed, you engage, as one person shared, right? Getting back up when you fall down. Being able to pivot without falling, absolutely. Resiliency is essentially being able to keep going. And resiliency is really what has been important to us the last year and a half. So in terms of resiliency, here are some additional strategies that can help support your resiliency. So here, this first one is connected to that social piece. Build your network of support and let others know how they can help. It is hard to ask for help sometimes, especially when you're in a position, a leadership position, when you're managing others. It sometimes might feel like it's your job to help other people and you might feel uncomfortable asking for help. However, when we ask for help, we are stretching out our hands and saying, I trust you. I trust that you have some knowledge, some skills, some resources that can benefit me, the team, and the organization. I trust you. Can you come through for me? Can you help me out, right? And so that can help build stronger relationships when we reach out and ask for help and support. When we get that help and support, we not only get the help we need, the time, the resources, whatever it might be, we also know that people are there for us, that they are behind us, and that we've got backup when we need it. So asking for help is incredibly important and can be a key part of our resiliency. Flexible is on here too, right? We have to accept change. That doesn't mean that we are going to just embrace all changes, right? It's okay to be angry about change. It's okay to be sad about change and be sad about what we've lost. That's all okay to do. We have to grieve for what we've lost. We have to feel all of those feelings. Once we've felt all of those feelings, we do need to come to a place of acceptance where we can continue to flex and change. It can be hard. I know there are moments where I'm feeling like I don't know how much more flexibility I have in me, yet we have to keep going, digging deep, taking care of yourself and keeping going. That's really the name of the game here, is flexibility. We also need to plan for how we are going to cope with stress. So having that self-care plan, some of you talked about things you do on a daily or a weekly basis. You've got that plan, right? And thinking through at work, what is our backup plan? What's our plan A? What's our plan B? What's our plan C? I think we've learned that we need to have a backup plan pretty much always, and sometimes we need a couple backups for the backup plans. So planning for how we're going to cope can help us manage this stress, help us feel like we're more prepared and we can handle whatever is going to come at us. We also need to make sure that we're maintaining boundaries. You're a person too, and you need to be who you are. You need to feed yourself, right? So that means you need to log out of work at the end of the day. Give yourself some time off and invest in yourself and do the self-care that you need to do so that when you log in again in the morning, you're fresh, you've done something for yourself, you feel like a whole, real person, and you can be present in your day again. So we need to make sure that we are maintaining boundaries between work and home and that we're encouraging employees to do the same. And then create an atmosphere where it's okay to pay attention to emotional states, where it's okay to say, I'm having a hard day. I need a moment. I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now. Let me just take a few deep breaths so I can gather myself together. That's okay to do. I think we've learned that we're all human. No one is perfect. Everyone has been feeling a lot of feelings the last year and a half. We need to come to a place where those feelings are okay, and we can acknowledge that sometimes we do need to step away. We do need to take some deep breaths, and then we can come back and re-engage. All right, here we go, back again. Sorry about that. Just as I was talking about taking a moment, there my computer decided it needed a little bit of a moment. So, all right, what I want to do with all of you now is to talk about really making your plan and thinking about how you are going to really invest in yourself and continue to invest in yourself as we continue to be flexible and move forward during this time of COVID. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to first walk you through a short visualization exercise, and then we're going to talk about what you can do to take care of yourself, and you're going to make a concrete plan for doing that. Okay? So what I'd like you to do now is to close your eyes and get comfortable. So sit in a position that feels comfortable for you and feel yourself just settling into your chair if you're sitting down. If you're standing or laying down, I recommend taking a seat for this so you can just kind of physically settle into the chair and get into a place where you're comfortable. Okay. So now close your eyes. And when you breathe in, I want you to breathe in through your nose. And when you breathe out, I want you to exhale through your mouth. I'm going to count you through some breathing exercises. Okay, we're going to do a 3 by 4. So we're going to count in for 3, hold for 3, exhale for 3, hold out for 3. So we're going to count to 3 4 times as we go through a full cycle. Okay, here we go. Breathe in, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3. Inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3. Continue breathing in this way. Count if you want to count, or just let your breathing fall into a natural pattern. And now as you close your eyes and take some nice relaxing breaths, I want you to imagine yourself strong and healthy and resilient. What does it look like when you are strong and healthy and resilient? What does it look like? And what does it sound like when you are strong and healthy and resilient? What does it sound like? What do you hear? What do you hear yourself saying, others saying, or maybe it's your environment around you? What does it sound like when you're strong and healthy and resilient? And now what does it feel like? What does it feel like inside, in your heart, in your soul, in your spirit? What does it feel like when you are strong and healthy and resilient? How do you feel? Get a vivid and detailed picture of what it looks like and sounds like and feels like when you are strong and healthy and resilient. Get really clear on what that means to you. And when you're ready, take a big exhale and open your eyes and rejoin me here. So in visualizing what it looks like when you are strong and healthy and resilient, that's your goal. That's what you're heading for, right? That's what we all want, to be strong and healthy and resilient. That's our goal. We need to get really clear on our goal so we know where we're headed, okay? So I want you to really remember that and what that looks like and feels like and sounds like to you. Okay, now I'm going to walk you through this action planning. It looks like a lot, but it's just a bit to think about in terms of how you can make a plan, a real plan to get to that goal state, to get to that place that you've just visualized yourself in. So first, we're going to begin by setting a modest goal. So I want you to think about one self-care strategy that you think you can start using to help you get closer to that healthy and strong and resilient place. Now, one self-care strategy, one modest goal here is not going to get you all the way there, right? It might get you there for some of you, but it's probably going to get you just closer. And in making a plan, we're going to set modest goals that help us just take baby steps closer and closer and closer to a place where we are feeling strong and healthy and resilient. We're going to set modest goals here. I call them baby steps. We have to take that step. We have to challenge ourselves and do the work to take that step. But we're not going to make giant leaps here because we've got a lot going on, right? As we've just talked about, there's a lot going on. You might be feeling burnout or compassion fatigue. You might just be feeling done, right? We're not going to take big leaps when we're feeling tired. We're going to take these little incremental steps, just bit by bit, to get closer to this place where we will be strong and healthy and resilient. So set a modest goal. So if you realize that you are not seeing your friends socially and you want to see them more socially, set a modest goal. For me, typically when I realize I've fallen off the social thing is I will say one friend event each week. One thing with a friend each week. And that's my modest goal. And it's not even a big thing. It's meeting a friend for a 30-minute walk, or it is doing a phone call, exchanging some emails with a friend. One thing though, one modest goal. And then make it easy for yourself to achieve this goal. We talk about this in terms of creating the environment or reducing the friction, right? How can I make it easy for myself to do one thing with a friend each week? This might seem silly, but what I can do is I can make a list of friends that I want to spend time with, right? That way it's easier. I've just made it a little bit easier because I've got this list of friends. The second thing I can do is I can put time on my calendar and I can talk with my family and say, Thursday nights, that's my night. I'm going to meet a friend for a walk. I'm going to do a virtual happy hour. I'm going to do, something, right? Something with a friend on Thursday night. I'm going to make it easier on myself to do this. I might even find a friend who's up for a regular Thursday evening walk, right? That's really easy because then I don't have to put as much work into it on a weekly basis. So think about how can you make it easy? Something like exercise, how can you make it easier to exercise? Can you get your equipment all ready to go so it's really easy to just do right after work? How can you make it easy to reach this modest goal? And then the next step, we're going back to that visualization here. Picture yourself engaging in this strategy. Picture what it's going to look like. I picture my friend and I walking around a lake. I picture me taking my dog, right? And the things we're going to see, the things we might talk about, what I'm going to hear. How can you picture yourself exercising? Or maybe it's eating a healthier diet, right? Really picture it, really get clear on what this is going to look like. And then make it part of your identity. Make it part of you. What we're doing when we're doing this is we're making it really important to ourselves. When being a good friend is part of my identity, when someone asks me to describe myself, if I say I'm a great friend, well, I better fall through on that, or I better, right? I better follow through, not fall through. I better follow through because I'm describing myself as someone who walks, who dances, who meditates, who is a good friend. If that's part of my identity, how I describe myself and who I am, I'm most likely going to do it, right? So make what you do, this new goal, part of who you are. Visualize yourself doing it, make it part of your identity, make it part of you, and you're more likely to follow through on it. And then the next piece here is to reward your progress. Check in with yourself on a weekly basis. So today is a Tuesday, and it's late in the day on Tuesday for many of you. You might be tempted to think, I'm going to start this next week, right? I want you to start this today. Create a plan today, and then check in with your Here we go again. All right. So make a plan to check in with yourself next Tuesday. Ask yourself, how did I do? How am I doing? And if you did it, celebrate and reward yourself for doing that. If you didn't do it, go into problem solving mode. Don't beat yourself up. Don't get mad and frustrated with yourself. Instead, think about how can I make it easier? Where's the friction? How can I reduce the friction? How can I make it part of me, right? How can I make this part of my identity? How can I clear the path so that I make this something that I do on a regular basis? So that's that last part of rewarding your progress. And all of those little baby steps absolutely count. And we need to just really continue to evaluate how we're doing, and continue to follow up, problem solve and continue to make those baby steps so that we get closer to our goal. Okay, so we're running short on time here, and I'm hoping that at this point you have a good plan for yourself. I'd like you also to think about, after you've made that plan for yourself, right? Take care of yourself first, then turn your attention to how can you support others? How can you encourage your team to take care of themselves, to relieve their stress, to use their benefits, right? How can you support and encourage your team to take care of themselves as well? Share what you're doing. Model it for them. Let them know that it's okay to log out at night. It's okay to just do the 40 hours and be okay with that on most weeks, right? There are some weeks, of course, where we have to go above and beyond, but we can't do that every week, right? Let them know that that is okay. And we need to make ourselves a priority so that we can come into work, show up, and be positive and productive. So encourage employees to do the same. I want to make sure I'm sharing these resources with you as well. So through your Anthem Employee Assistance Program, you have access to a variety of supportive benefits here. You can see the phone number, the website, and the login are all on the slide here. As I mentioned earlier, they provide quite a bit of support: personal counseling, legal and financial support. They can help refer you to other resources as well. And they do have a lot of resources on their website, so that's a great feature to use as well. Okay. So as we're closing out here, and while I still have my connection with all of you, just kind of a little bit of a wrap up here. Remember that this is a marathon we're running. This is not a sprint. We've made it through a lot of changes. We've had to be really flexible. That's going to continue. We don't like it, but it's the reality that we've got. The change can be stressful. Acknowledge your feelings. Feel the anger. Feel all of that grief. Feel the sadness, and that's okay. Come to a place of acceptance and then work through that, right? This is where we are. What can you do today to take care of yourself, to encourage your team to take care of themselves? Working in HR, working as a manager, doesn't mean you have all the answers, doesn't mean that you are immune to the impact of the pandemic. So take care of yourself. Take a moment for yourself when you need it. And really be kind to yourself. Show yourself some compassion. You're going to have moments where you slip up. You're going to have moments where you feel like you're falling down, and that's okay. Take those moments, pick yourself back up, show your resiliency, and keep going. All right. Thank you so much for bearing with me today and these technology issues. I really appreciate it. I have a QR code on the slide here now. If you want to provide some feedback, I appreciate it. You can just grab your smartphone, open up your camera app, and the QR code should bring up a link where you can complete a survey and give some feedback. And then we do have 3 minutes. I apologize, I didn't leave us with more time. Do you have any questions? I'm happy to try to answer those. If you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them. And also a note that every time I had to come back in, I lost the chat history. So if you had a question in there, please put it back in so that I see it again. All right, I'm not seeing many questions here. Maintaining boundaries can be difficult. Yes, being in the same physical space makes it hard to get into a new mental space. Yes, if you can, tuck your computer in a drawer or a closet just so that it's not visible. It's a small thing, but that's something that I do, especially if I've had a rough day, is I try to really just shove it out of mind. The other thing that can be helpful, after you put your work stuff away, go for a quick walk around the block. A nice brisk walk. It counts as part of our exercise, right? It counts towards those 30 minutes. Even if it's just 5 minutes, leave your house, leave your workspace, your home space and come back in, and it's like you've come home, right? Take a walk around the block as your commute home. That might help you to leave that a little bit too. I do a little bit of aromatherapy. I light some scented candles after my work day, so I've got a different scent that reminds me this is relaxation time. Do some kind of ritual at the end of your workday to mark that now this is personal time, this is my time, this is fun time. And that might help you a little bit with some of those boundaries. It's not going to be perfect, but think about an end of day ritual that can help you separate that, and that might be helpful. Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful. Um, some people go for a drink, right? They have a little happy hour. That's okay, right? But remembering that alcohol, we don't want to use that as a crutch. Um, so think of something else. Maybe it's if you're in a colder climate, a warm cup of tea, or sparkling water, or an iced tea, or something like that, right? So to have a wind down ritual at the end of the workday can be really helpful. Maybe it's doing a workout, just checking in with your family, your friends, something like that. That could help too. Music is a really great transition as well. Okay, great. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. I want to thank all of you for staying with me again today and joining me. I hope that you will really follow through on your action plans, put some of this self-care to work, and just little steps, little things every day, and eventually you will get there. Thanks, everyone.